Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Pathways to Happiness podcast. My name is Nena Lavonne, and I am excited about today's podcast because we're going to be talking about how to feel better this year, specific ways we can focus on overall wellness and directly improve our mental and physical health in a way that is not overwhelming and that doesn't add any more stress to our life. So firstly, Happy New Year. Happy 2021. It's been kind of a wild ride already, but I am still optimistic, and more than ever, it is time to start bringing some joy and normalcy back into our life. And I think with everything that happened in 2020, we felt that we had no choice but to put some very important things on the back burner. And I think we have to give ourselves a lot of credit for everything that we did go through, because so many of these things just had such a serious toll on our mental and physical health. We have been more stressed out than ever. We've had a lot of weight gain. We feel lonely. We feel isolated. We feel more worried about our health and our finances. And these worries aren't going to disappear overnight, and our world and our lives have certainly gone through some big significant changes. And that's why I think it is just so important that we make 2021 a year that we truly focus on our own wellness. And this is going to be very different for every person. We all have different needs. We have different deficiencies in different areas. So it is very individualized, but the common theme is wellness in 2021. So when I reached out on social media to ask how everyone was feeling at the end of last year, I had a lot of people say that they felt hopeful, which was wonderful to hear. But a lot of other people still felt very discouraged, very worried, very exhausted, very kind of over it, and unwell in many areas. And I totally get it. I am so focused on wellness myself, but there are still areas of my own health that I let slip because it just seemed like there was so much going on. And once we break a routine, especially a routine that had been designed to keep us eating well or sleeping well or getting outdoors or exercising or any of the things that we know we need to do, once that chain is broken, it can feel impossible to kind of pick up the pieces and start doing all these things again, especially when it seems so much more inconvenient or less fun or less satisfying or less comfortable. 2020 just tore us all out of our comfort zones. And I think we can all testify to the fact that it's been hard to get our motivation back. And again, totally get it. I've been there. But the reality is that our life is ticking by and we have no idea when things are going to settle down or what changes or what situations will keep happening. So we can't keep waiting to feel better or to eat better or to do any of the things that we clearly know would make us feel better, because it's all connected. Mental and physical health are directly related and intertwined, and happiness and life satisfaction can be directly reliant on these things. So when we ignore them, we are really doing ourselves a disservice. So I want to get right into solution finding today, because it is more than time for us to feel better and to really start taking control back of our lives. Before we jump into the topic, however, I just want to quickly thank you all for all your support, both here and on the Nena Lavonne YouTube channel. I have so many things planned for this year, much of which came from the questions and suggestions that you all made. So I want to thank you also for that. So if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe, again, both here and on the YouTube channel, and to spread the word about the channel and the podcast, because you never know who might need a little extra encouragement right now. So that being said, let's talk about how to feel better in 2021. So, the first thing that I want to say is that although it is a new, fresh slate, a new year is not a magic wand. Our problems don't mystically disappear, and no significant changes will take place whatsoever if we ourselves don't make them happen. And we can't hit any target until we know what that target is. We can't reach a goal that we don't identify. When we are vague about our needs and our desires, it's always unlikely that we will end up doing what is truly necessary to achieve these things because we haven't given our momentum any direction to get rolling in. So we have to start there. We have to figure out what exactly it is that we want and what we no longer want. And so, like everything else, it kind of starts with introspection and then writing it all down. I think the easiest thing to do is to start with what is making us feel the most unhappy or the most unwell. For me, the first thing that went down on my own list was my eating. I am definitely a comfort eater and I will eat also as a personal reward a lot of times. So I knew this was going to be something that I had to change in the new year. Like so many of us, I was so disciplined before the pandemic, but then I got out of the routine because all the routines in my life had to change so much. And so as an example, I immediately put that on my list without judgment, without regret for the months prior. And I think that's important too. When we are thinking about the things that we want to change, we don't want to slip into getting upset with ourselves or feeling guilty. We have to understand that we are all just doing the best we can to get through life. And we sometimes make choices that we think will make us feel better in the moment. And so we just have to kind of love ourselves through that and be self compassionate and understanding. But we also have to be loving enough to know that we need to be a parent to our own self and we need to make these changes in our life because they will ultimately make us feel so much more healthier and happier in the long run and even in the short term in many cases. It can feel like a relief. It can make us feel better right away just to do something about it, just to address these things that we've been pushing away because we do feel like we are taking control of our life. I know that is definitely how I feel when I, get going with a goal or make a commitment to myself. And we have to remember that there are always consequences beyond our physical health when we aren't taking the best care of ourselves. So we have the obvious physical health concerns that result when we don't eat well or sleep well, but there are also psychological consequences. It can lower our self-esteem and it can cause anxiety issues. So this is why it's so important that we do take that control back of our life. So we have to start by kind of just writing it all down, all the things that aren't working, all the things that would lead to improved wellness or improved happiness if we really did make changes in them. And then we want to dream about what we do want. We want to think about where we want to be, what we want to achieve. What do we want to be able to see in our life when we wake up on January 1st, 2022? We want to list it all out. And then after you have given yourself enough time to kind of list it all out, maybe take a few days, maybe write things down as they pop into your head and, of course, write down all the immediate things that we can think of. But take enough time that you really have a good assessment for, again, what you want and what you don't want. And then you want to sit down and kind of analyze it all and see where the priorities are. What are the things that need our immediate attention? What are the things that have absolutely must change right away? And what things can we work towards once we kind of get things more in order? And with that, we want to make really a personal vision statement and a wellness plan. And it's also important that we remind ourselves how essential wellness really is. It's interesting. My sister and I had this wonderful conversation about exercise. and how so often we focus on exercise being something that's really just for weight loss or weight management, but we forget how important exercise is to our mental health and our cognitive health and anxiety reduction and all these other added benefits. Whenever we are taking care of our physical health, we are really supporting our mental health as well. So we have to remember how important this is to our wellness as a whole and why it is worth the time to put into it. I think a lot of times we feel guilt spending, time on ourselves or investing in ourselves in any way by, let's say, buying foods that are healthier that tend to be more expensive or anything like that because we don't feel worth it a lot of times, or we don't feel that we are that important. We value other things over our health and our wellness. And that is a habit that we have to snap ourselves out of because there is nothing more important than our physical and our mental health. Without our physical and mental health, we can't take care of the other aspects of our life that are so important and the other people in our life that are so important. When we are taking care of ourselves, we just bring the best of ourselves out. We present to the world our best self. And, because of all these unforeseen circumstances, for many of us, we have felt that we haven't been presenting our best self, that we haven't been able to be our best self. And this is a great way to get on track of our wellness and our health so we can work towards being our best self. So that is something that we really need to focus on if we do have any guilt or reservations attached to investing this time, or in some cases, again, money into our health. And we don't have to make it expensive. Like, let's say we're talking about exercising. That doesn't mean that we have to join a gym if that's something that we have put on our list. If our, physical fitness is there, we can go running, we can watch YouTube clips. There are always economical solutions to all of these things. So we have to know that if there is something that we are committed to, we can find a way to do it, and we can make it as cost efficient and time efficient as possible. So it is important that we look at all these things that we've put down, make a commitment to ourselves, and make that wellness plan. And in a wellness plan, just like any other of our goals, we have to make sure that the goals are very clear and they are reachable. And I've mentioned this in a few podcasts before, but the method that I personally like to use to kind of check my goals is the SMART method, which is the SMART. Each of the letters stands for something. So the S is for specific. So by specific, it just means that we want to be very, very crystal clear about what the goal actually is. It needs to be significant, it needs to be sensible, and it needs to be simple enough that we can really grasp what the actual goal is. The M is for measurable. And I think this is the place where so many of us get tripped up, because if we make a goal too general, there's really no way to measure it. So we have to find aspects of our goals that we can measure. So for example, if we just put our goal as being happier in the new year, I mean, how are we going to measure that? We need to be, more specific. So we need to say that I'm going to spend, let's say, this amount of time with friends, or I'm going to spend this amount of time doing things that I enjoy, or whatever it is. But we want to create goals that are actually measurable so we can look back at them and see if we are actually working on these goals, if we're making progress on these goals. When they're too general, if they're not measurable, there's no way to determine that, so we end up forgetting about the goals altogether. And in measurable, we want to also think about that they should be motivating and also meaningful. If these goals are not meaningful to us, again, what's going to happen? We're going to care about them for 2 seconds and then we're going to move on with our life. So always we want to make sure that there is enough meaning behind the goals that will actually motivate us enough to stick with the program of achieving these goals. And that brings me to the A, which is for achievable. We have to make sure that they are actually achievable. So these need to be obtainable goals. So they need to be things that in the, foreseeable future we would be able to achieve with the means that we have or means that we will be able to work towards. So we want to make sure that we are setting ourselves up for success. So we want to sometimes think about breaking up these goals into just smaller pieces, into goals that we can actually achieve. So if our goal is to be a concert pianist, we want to maybe start with, let's take piano lessons. So we need to break up these goals to things that are manageable and actually achievable for us. And another thing is that they need to be relevant, which is the R. So by relevant, I mean they need to be results-based, they need to be resourced, they need to be realistic and reasonable, and they need to make sense in our life right now, because if they are not relevant, if they are not important right now, first of all, they shouldn't be getting our time and energy right now, because time and energy are very limited resources. So we want to find the things in our life that are the most important and the most relevant. And the T in the SMART method is for time bound or time based. So we want to make sure that these things can be achieved in a timely manner, that we can put an end to when we want to have these things completed by, that we can have a specific date. So we want to, let's say our goal is weight loss. We could give ourselves 2 months to lose 5 pounds or whatever it is. So we have that goal of 2 months, which actually also makes it measurable. So all these things kind of work together. So if you have difficulty trying to figure out what your goals should be, or if you feel like, you never reach your goals, you can kind of cross-check it with this method. This is something that I've used for years and years and years, and I find to be really, really helpful. And I think another thing that we have to think about also has to do with that time, and that is making a specific start date. Now, I know a lot of people hate New Year's resolutions. I've personally always loved them, and I tend to stick with them. And I think that we can make these resolutions anytime. It doesn't have to be an arbitrary special date, but the first thing that we need to do is decide when each of these things are going to happen, exactly when we will start on these goals. I knew personally that the beginning of January was going to be crazy for me, so I actually just started with my New Year's resolutions. So I made sure that I had a realistic time to start so that I could put all my effort and energy in, because that first couple of weeks of starting in on a goal, those weeks are really important. So we want to be able to give these goals our full time and attention. We are focusing on wellness. So another thing that we want to think about when we are creating these goals is to think about making sure that we are addressing both our emotional wellness goals, our mental health goals, as well as our physical wellness goals. So we're going to brainstorm actionable steps, make the goals measurable some way, and make sure that we are able to track them so that we can take them seriously. And when you are making your wellness plan, you can also look to what's called the 8 dimensions of wellness. Now, if you've never heard this phrase before, I did a whole long YouTube video on this on the Nena Lavonne YouTube channel. I will link it down below if you're actually listening to this podcast through YouTube. Otherwise, I believe it's called Checking In with the 8 Dimensions of Wellness, and you can look that up with Nena Lavonne. It'll pull right up. But the 8 dimensions of wellness are occupational, emotional, spiritual, environmental, financial, physical, social, and intellectual. So these are all the different facets of our wellness that we need to consider. So, if we think about these different dimensions of wellness, we can kind of think about the different areas of our life where we do feel deficient, the things that we have been ignoring. I know for me, a huge one for a lot of years was intellectual wellness because I owned and operated my own business. And before I went back for another career and went back to school for psychology, I owned and operated a dance studio for years and years and years. And it just took up so much of my time. I absolutely adored my job, but it took up so much of my time that I didn't have what I felt was intellectual growth. And it really affected me. And when I finally came to that realization, I kind of went overboard with it because I realized that I had felt so deficient in it. And so I think that we need to kind of look at the different dimensions and see where we are really neglecting these things. A lot of people, for example, their spiritual wellness, when they don't address their spiritual wellness, they can feel incredibly depleted. Or if they have issues with their financial wellness. So we can look at these aspects of our wellness and we can come up with specific goals there as well. But today, I just wanted to focus more on the emotional or mental health aspect of wellness and our physical wellness. So, let's start with that emotional wellness. And I just wanted to talk about a few ideas that we could kind of consider, but please be open. Every person is different. So, what's going to meet one person's needs is not necessarily going to meet another person's need. We are all just such unique creatures. So, if there's something that really is helpful to you that isn't on this list, by all means include it in your own list. So these are some of the things that I have found and research has found to be helpful for our emotional wellness. The first thing is journaling. This is something that was really life changing for me and something that I never considered when I was younger. I really felt that it was a waste of time, but it really is so helpful to, not only express yourself and to kind of have that introspection and to get your emotions down on the page, but it can offer you a lot of insights. So many times, you write something on the page that you didn't even realize consciously was bothering you or that, you have been thinking about. So it's just a kind of way to collect your thoughts, to remind yourself what your focus is going to be for that day, and to really keep track of how you are feeling, because you can review your journal and kind of go over it and analyze it and see, well, these areas are areas that I do need to work on, or, it seems like I'm feeling pretty anxious about my job or whatever it is. But you can, upon analyzing your own journal, you can come to a lot of insights that can help you, again, make those positive changes. So that's something that I've found to be enormously helpful. And another practice that has been really life-changing for me has been the practice of yoga. And I will kind of combine that with meditation. These are things that I like to include in my daily life, and I feel that really center me and ground me and keep me much more in the present moment than I used to be. But these things are also backed by research as well. In fact, a lot of therapies for anxiety and depression will include an element of mindfulness meditation as kind of a supplement for other treatments. We know that it is effective and it is helpful to our mental health. So that's something that I really can't recommend enough, and it is just so important to wellness. I think it's also important to just kind of have a quiet time daily. And I know for so many people right now, they have their children home and they're not used to having their children home all the time. So they don't have that moment for that daily quiet time. And I think it's almost worth it to get up even earlier than the children a lot of times to be able to have that time for yourself, or just take a few moments when, the kids go to sleep. Or maybe you just have a lot of demands in your job or in your family life, whatever it is. But you need to find some quiet time to yourself to kind of take a time out, to take a break. We need to take breaks during our day. We need to have time to breathe and to recharge. And in this kind of fast-paced society, we've gotten out of the habit of doing that. And we know that just thinking about productivity, when we do take breaks, we're actually much more productive than when we don't take breaks. So we can kind of make that parallel with our health. So when we are taking those little steps back and those little moments for ourselves, we really do recharge and refresh ourselves, and that can be paralleled in our mental and physical health as well. So when we're taking breaks, we are, really enhancing our wellness pretty directly. Another thing is to get outside. It seems so simple. And I know it's cold for a lot of people right now. It's very cold where I am too, but I still really see the value in getting outdoors. We must spend time outdoors. That is something, again, that has been proven to affect positively our wellness and our mental health. So even if it just means going outside, checking out the stars, or if you can, to go out in the morning and take a walk, or just take a few moments for yourself to breathe that fresh air and to just get out into nature. It is, really fundamental for us. And we get so used to staying in the house. We've been told to stay in the house, and we need to make sure that we are getting outdoors as much as we can, because we tend to feel better almost immediately when we do that. Another thing is to make sure that we are making our connections still, that we are finding a way to be social even when we are not really able to see people in a lot of cases, so that we are keeping our kind of social wellness in check by having those Zoom calls. As much as maybe we don't love to have them, we do love the people in the calls. So we want to make sure that we're keeping up in any way we can. And if there are safe ways to actually physically see people, it's important that we maintain those connections in any way that we safely can. So just remember that we don't want to be isolated. We are social creatures by nature, and so many people feel so deeply lonely right now. So we want to make sure that we're really taking care of ourselves in that way and really maintaining those connections as best as we can. And just kind of overall, we want to focus on self-care. We need to make sure that we are really addressing all of our needs, whether they be a need for a change of scenery. That's a big one for me. A need for getting organized. A lot of people feel that outer clutter causes inner chaos, which is definitely the case for me. So self-care can be even just cleaning your house, or, like we talked about before, intellectual wellness. It could be reading a book or taking an online course or doing something that you find stimulating. All these things can be forms of self-care, which can lead to enhanced mental health and emotional wellness. So those are just a few suggestions, but think about the things that really do make you feel happy and make you feel well. And I just wanted to briefly touch upon some of the physical wellness goals that maybe we should be thinking about this year, such as the basics like nutrition. We definitely need to be eating better. That is something, again, like I said, that was top of the list for me. We can see directly when we eat better, we feel better. It's plain and simple. So we need to be eating better so that we can feel better. And drinking water, that's such a simple one, but we forget to drink water. And something that has made it more appealing for me is in the morning, I just make a whole thing of water with ice and I put lemon in it, and it just makes it much more appealing to me. So, whatever you need to do to make it more appealing to drink water, but we definitely need to be drinking water and getting out of the habits of drinking soda, which was the worst habit for me. It took me years and years to break the habit of drinking soda. Soda was probably my favorite thing to consume in the entire universe. And I still do in moderation sometimes, but for me, I know it's now a treat. So if we can kind of back away from these things and kind of change these habits, we're going to feel a lot better. Definitely made me feel better when I stopped drinking soda on a regular basis. And the other one is exercising. I know we already talked about that one, but exercise helps us on so many different levels. It's not just about maintaining or losing weight. It is about our mental health as well. It is about taking care of our body. It is about staying young and staying vibrant. And it really is so associated with our cognitive health, much more than we ever realized before. So we've got to get out and exercise. And I always say this, but if you suffer from anxiety issues, while exercise is certainly not a cure for anxiety, it has been shown to be extremely helpful for most people. And we can get creative with it. It doesn't have to be something that you find to be miserable and excruciating. You can find forms of exercise that are fun for you. It could be dancing, it could be swimming, it could be whatever you want that gets you moving. But you've got to get moving as much as possible, because that is definitely going to enhance our wellness right away. And sleeping, and this is another one that we need to really focus on. I know it's so easy to get caught up in, watching Netflix until all hours of the night, and especially if you are staying at home right now, if your job is at home and you're able to just kind of stay in your pajamas, we get out of the habit of having a good sleep schedule. We forget about our sleep hygiene altogether, and so we just stay up whenever we want, we wake up whenever we want, and it is so much better for us if we can have an actual schedule and if we could keep to that schedule, because then we can really, have that ritual. And when our body has a ritual, has a schedule, it just functions so much better because it knows what it's being asked to do at basically what time. So if we could start getting back into that habit, that could really enhance our wellness as well. And again, just overall health hygiene from start to finish. Simple things like flossing our teeth, keeping up with our physical exams, and finding ways to safely see our doctors when we need to. Just simple things like that. Making our health a priority. And we also want to make sure that we are listening to our body. We've got to relax when we need to relax. We need to rest. We need to reset. Our body sends us cues. It sends us signals all the time. It tells us most of the time what our needs actually are, but we are so good at tuning these things out. So in 2021, we are going to honor ourselves. We are going to honor our bodies. If our body is telling us we need to rest, then we need to rest, or whatever our body is telling us. We need to listen to our internal cues and to meet our own needs. Again, this is something that for some reason we grow to feel is selfish in some way. Self-care is never selfish. It is absolutely necessary. So please, please, please stop putting your health and your wellness on the back burner. You deserve to feel better, and you can. You can feel better. There are things that we can do today that can make us feel better. And, again, we really deserve this. We are worthy. We are worthy of this, and we need to take care of ourselves because that is our job. It is nobody else's job to take care of ourselves. That is our job, and we need to do a better job of it so we can start enjoying life more. Again, when we feel better, we feel more optimistic. We are more resilient, we are much less stressed out, and we experience so much less mental and physical exhaustion. So Please let me know what I missed. What are the things that you feel are important that you are going to be putting on your list? Please comment in the comments. I would love to hear what those things are, any suggestions that you might have. And I just want to hear that you are dedicating yourself to wellness this year, that you are making yourself the priority that you need to be. No, we cannot necessarily control everything that is happening in the world right now. And we have no idea when things will kind of settle down and get back to normal. And that's okay, because what we do have control of is our own life and our own decisions and our own wellness. So I truly hope that this inspires you to take your health and your wellness much more seriously and make yourself the priority that you need to be. I have been doing a series on YouTube lately where I have been answering more of your questions, so please keep sending them in. I will try to answer them there, as well as on the questions and answers podcasts that we do from time to time. You can reach me by email, which is nena.lavonne@gmail.com, nena.lavonne@gmail, or you can reach me on Twitter, and my Twitter handle is at Nena Lavonne. So I thank you so much for spending time with me today. Happy, happy, happy New Year. I wish you nothing but health, wellness, happiness, prosperity, everything good in the new year. And I greatly look forward to seeing you next time, guys. Have an amazing day.